So let's begin. Hello and a good afternoon to all of the National Black Student Association members that have made time in their busy schedules to join us for today's discussion about the New Jersey Courts Judicial Clerkship Program. My name is Kevin Harmon. I'm a Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist in our HR Placement Division. I help coordinate the Law Clerkship Program for the New Jersey Judiciary Courts, and I will be your moderator today. Before I kick things off with introductions of our esteemed panel, let's go over some housekeeping items. So first, today's webinar will be approximately 1 hour long. I know I have Ms. Ford up until 4 o'clock. She has a hard stop, so I'll try to get out before then. We will have opportunities throughout the webinar for questions through the Zoom Q&A feature. If you can, try not to use chat if you do have any questions. We'll also have an opportunity for a longer Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. If we don't have the opportunity to answer all of your questions, we will follow up after the event. And also, and this is important, at the end of the webinar, I'll go over key dates in terms of current clerkship hiring for the 2022-2023 term for any 3L students. And I will also touch on application process schedule for the 2023-2024 term. Can't believe I'm saying that already, which current 2L students would be applying for next June. So please stick around for that. Now, New Jersey court system is recognized and respected nationally for our progressive and innovative work. Each year, our judges hire approximately 400 law clerks statewide. A clerkship with New Jersey courts enhances career prospects with real-world experience, working closely with judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, trial litigators, and the support personnel of the court system, while also serving the public. Our panelists are here today to describe the critical work of our judicial law clerks and to provide you information on the benefits of our one-of-a-kind clerkship program and our application and hiring process. I am honored to introduce our panel. First, let me introduce Justice Fabiana Pierre-Louis. Justice Pierre-Louis was nominated by Governor Phil Murphy on June 5th, 2020, and was sworn in as an Associate Justice on September 1st, 2020. She is the first Black woman to serve on New Jersey Supreme Court. At the time of her appointment, Justice Pierre-Louis was a partner at Montgomery McCracken, where she worked in the White Collar and Government Investigations Practice Group. She focused her practice on complex commercial litigation, white collar crime, and government investigations. Born on September 9th, 1980, day after my birthday, in New York City, Justice Pierre-Louis spent her early childhood in Brooklyn and moved to Irvington, New Jersey when she was 8 years old. She received her bachelor's degree with Rutgers University and a law degree from Rutgers Law School. Justice Pierre-Louis began her career as a law clerk to New Jersey Supreme Court Associate Justice John E. Wallace Jr., whose seat she now occupies. In September 2010, she joined the U.S. Attorney's Office, where she served as the attorney in charge of the Trenton and Camden branches. Justice Pierre-Louis also worked in the Newark office in the General Crimes and Organized Crime and Gang units. Justice Pierre-Louis and her husband have 2 sons. Nice to have you here today with us, Justice Pierre-Louis.
Thank you.
Welcome. Next, we have the Honorable Thomas W. Sumners, Jr., who was nominated by New Jersey Governor John Corzine and was sworn into office as a Superior Court Judge on May 27, 2008. He was assigned to the civil bench in the Mercer-Visnage until 2011, when he was transferred to the criminal bench. New Jersey Supreme Court Chief Justice Stuart Rabner appointed him to the appellate division effective August 1st, 2014, where he continues to serve. He is currently chair of the Judicial Education Committee. Judge Sumners attended Lafayette College, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree. He earned his law degree at Rutgers University School of Law, Newark. He began his law career in 1984 as a law clerk in the Superior Court Law Division, Special Civil Part Essex, Visnage. He then went into private practice, working as an associate in general practice with a focus on education law, personal injury, business agreements, landlord-tenant, and estate matters. He opened his own law office in Trenton in 1990, and shortly thereafter was a founding partner of Sumner's counsel, George and Dorch, who Judge Sumners recently told me have all been appointed to the bench, where he continued his general practice until his appointment to the bench. Welcome, Judge Sumners.
Thank you.
Great. Our next panelist is the Honorable Martha T. Maynor, who was nominated by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie as a Superior Court Judge in 2011. On June 1st, 2011, after confirmation by the legislature, Judge Manor became one of 2 African-American female Superior Court judges in Hudson County. She currently sits in the Chancery Division, Family Part Juvenile. She previously sat in both the Criminal Division, Civil Divisions, and Landlord-Tenant Court. Judge Manor currently serves as co-chair of both the Hudson County Youth Services Commission and Hudson Council of Juvenile Justice System Improvement. Immediately preceding her appointment to the bench, she served as the Hudson County Deputy Public Defender. In that capacity, she managed and led an office while she personally representing defendants charged with indictable offenses, including but not limited to drug distribution, sexual assault, and murder. Prior to becoming a managing attorney, Judge Manor litigated well over 1,000 criminal cases, both as a defense attorney with the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender in Middlesex, Ocean, Union, Burlington, and Hudson counties, and as an appellate research attorney with the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. Judge Manor began her legal career as a law clerk by Honorable Betty J. Lester, presiding criminal judge in Essex County Superior Court. She earned her JD in 1996 from Seton Hall University School of Law and a BA in English Literature in 1993 from Seton Hall University. Judge Manor was born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, and is a proud graduate of Arts High School class of 1989. Good to see you again, Judge Manor.
Thank you very much.
Right. And last but not certainly not least, let's welcome Elijah S. Ford. As a non-traditional law student, Ms. Ford worked full-time as a human resources manager at Rutgers University while attending classes in the evening. After graduating, Ms. Ford began her legal career as a judicial law clerk at the Superior Court of New Jersey, Essex County Vicinage, in the criminal division under the Honorable Harold Fully Love Jr. She is currently a special deputy attorney general, acting assistant prosecutor in Gloucester County, New Jersey, under Prosecutor Christine Hoffman, where she works in the Special Victims Unit on domestic violence matters and occasionally with juveniles. As of next month, Ms. Ford will venture out on her own to build a full-service family law practice, where she will specialize in complex matrimonial litigation. Ms. Ford is also very active as a servant and mentor in the legal community. She was recently named as the new leader of the bar by the New Jersey Legal Journal for her bar leadership work, and was featured by Essence Magazine on her experience as a Black woman in law in their December 2020 issue. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Ford.
Thank you.
Great. And okay, so now that we've introduced our panelists, let's jump right into our discussion with a question for Judge Manor. Judge Manor, what is it like to work as a judicial clerk in the New Jersey courts?
So I can give you the answer to that question, both from my experience as a judicial law clerk and as a judge who has had 11 law clerks since my appointment to the bench. I think that a clerkship is incomparable, and I think that it prepares you for any type of career that you intend to pursue in the legal profession. One, it allows you to have the exposure and the interaction with all types of professionals in the court system and in the legal community. You learn the jobs, basically, if you take it seriously, you learn the jobs of everyone in the courthouse, because you interact with so many different types of people in the building. So you have to engage with clerks that do a lot of the data entry work and become very familiar with the codes and statutes. You work with team leaders who are the managers of those clerks. You work with probation officers if you're in the criminal division, and in the juvenile and family divisions, dealing with child support, dealing with juvenile offenses, and dealing with criminal adult offenses. You work with the judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys, and just the general bar, depending on what docket type you are clerking for. You learn how to do research and writing from a neutral position, which I think benefits you when you decide which side of the spectrum you're going to work on, because you learn how the judges are going to receive the information you present to them. So you get to see good writing, you get to see bad writing, you get to see good lawyering, you get to see bad lawyering. You get to learn all of the general and basic information that is presented, but you also get to experience the nuances, the thought processes behind making certain decisions. You learn the things that judges like to see, that they don't like to see, how all of that information is received by the court and how it is interpreted by the court and then presented in their opinions. So I think that a clerkship is phenomenal. I know that me personally, because I clerked for a criminal judge and then went on to work with the public defender's office and the prosecutor's office, I knew about the administrative portions of things. I knew about the systems that they use. So once I became a public defender and a prosecutor, I knew how to look up things in Promise Gavel. I knew how to look up things in fax. I knew about all of the different systems that they used. More importantly, you become sensitive and considerate of the people that you deal with as an attorney. So you know that it is important that you not submit things late, because you have a law clerk that's going to be working very late to read your documents in order to prepare their documents to submit to the judge. So you just gain a wealth of information and knowledge, networking opportunities, and exposure to things that you wouldn't normally have the opportunity to witness. And I think that every person who is thinking of practicing in the state of New Jersey should certainly consider a clerkship before going into their ultimate trade.
All right, thank you for that answer, Judge Manor. Judge Sumners, how do the duties, I guess, or how may duties differ within the various trial courts?
Well, they differ. I can speak to my experience at two levels of the trial court. I sat in civil, I also sat in criminal. Then, of course, for the past 7 or 8 years, I've been here in the appellate division. There is a huge difference between clerking in the trial court and the appellate division. And when I say appellate division, also that an extension of that would be the Supreme Court, which Justice Pierre Louis can speak about. But I think that there's similar responsibilities between the appellate division law clerks and this Supreme Court law clerks. But in terms of the trial courts, in civil, it's much more paper intensive. You deal with a high volume of motions in the civil practice. You deal with scheduling of motions, trial. You deal with, as Judge Maynard said, you deal with a lot of individuals, be they the lawyers, be they the lawyers' legal assistants, be they pro se's who are appearing before your particular judge. So you really deal with people. At the appellate division, you really don't deal with people outside of your chambers. The judge, I happen to, in the appellate division, we happen to have 2 law clerks. So you deal with your co-law clerk, you deal with myself, you might deal with the assistants, my legal secretary. You may deal with the other judges on the panel. In New Jersey at the appellate division, a particular panel consists of 4 judges, and your responsibilities are to research and prepare weekly memos. When I say weekly, maybe not every weekly, but say out of 4 weeks out of a month, 3 of those weeks you're responsible for writing a memo, which would be an articulation of the issues, the factual issues, the legal issues raised by the parties, your assessment of those issues, and your recommendation to the panel. In addition, you are required to review the opinions that the judge prepares, the draft opinions. The judge will prepare an opinion. It gets reviewed in chambers by the law clerks. We call it scrubbing. It can be looking for grammatical errors. It can be looking for citation, blue booking errors. It can be making stylistic changes, and it also can be making substantive changes. But of course, the judge's opinion in large part is based upon the memos that the law clerks prepare for the judge or for that panel. Once the chambers is finished with reviewing that particular opinion, then it will go out to the judges on the panel. It could be a 2-judge panel or it can be a 3-judge panel. But generally, the appellate division law clerks are really just isolated in terms of doing all their work in chambers and have very little contact with the outside world, so to speak. At the appellate division, everything that's handled in terms of scheduling, submission of briefs, adjournments, that all goes through our clerk's office. We in chambers don't handle anything like that, and that's far different from the trial court. When the trial court, you really have your hands-on management of all the cases that are assigned to you.
Okay, thank you, Judge Sumners. Justice Pierre Louis, how do you interact with your law clerks, and what are your expectations for your law clerk?
Well, I interact with them a lot, as Judge Sumner's mentioned, at the appellate level, at the Supreme Court level. We're somewhat isolated and not interacting with the public. There's not, there aren't trials taking place because it's an appellate court. So it's really just a lot of interaction within the chamber. So I have 3 law clerks and I have my legal assistant. So that's my staff, and we spend a lot of time together. Even last year, when everything was primarily virtual, we spent a lot of time on virtual meetings talking about cases. My law clerks would call me and I would call them, and we'd get on virtual meetings very frequently. So we spent a lot of time talking to each other about cases. My expectations of my clerks are significant, because there's certainly a lot of work that they need to do. As Judge Sumner's mentioned, there's a lot of researching and a lot of writing that takes place at an appellate clerkship. So here at the Supreme Court, the clerks spend a lot of time working on petitions for certification and also bench memorandums. The petitions for certification are the vehicle by which parties must use to ask the Supreme Court to hear their case. And so the Supreme Court only grants a very small percentage of those petitions for certifications, but the law clerks play a big role in that process, because they are the ones that review the filings, the record, and draft memorandums to the court, recommending whether the court should grant or deny certification. So they play a big role in that process. The clerks also play a big role in preparing the justices for matters that will be argued before the court. So throughout the year, the clerks draft bench memoranda on those cases. And those bench memos are really comprehensive memos of the case that include everything in the record, all the applicable case law, all the facts, and their recommendation on how they think the court should rule. And the clerks usually spend, I think they're given about six to 7 weeks to complete those memos. So that gives you a sense of how comprehensive those memorandums are. So by the time they finish drafting those, they pretty much know more about the case than anyone. And the bench memo is really the first thing that I reach for, and most of the other justices reach for in preparing for oral argument before we review the briefs and the transcripts. We reach for that bench memorandum because it's a nice and concise summary of everything we need to know about the case. My clerks also assist with drafting opinions, reviewing opinions of other justices, and doing a similar process that Judge Sumner's explained, with kind of scrubbing it and looking to ensure that the citations are correct, making any stylistic changes and any suggestions that they think would be beneficial. So there are a lot of tasks that the clerks are responsible for. And so in addition to those, there are other memos and other matters that the clerks handle. But we rely on them pretty significantly here at the Supreme Court. So I expect that their work is going to be very clear, and that their legal analysis is also very clear, and that they're able and willing to give their recommendation on how they think these cases should turn out, because that's a big part of the documents that they draft to all the justices. So we rely on them a great deal here at the court.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Ford, could you describe your day-to-day responsibilities when you were in Judge Fulilove's chambers?
Sure. Well, generally, I say being a clerk is a very, very important role, but you have many, many hats. It's pretty much, I watch Game of Thrones, so it's like being the hand of the king or the queen. Like that's basically, your job, being that person's right hand person. And it's the epitome of other duties as assigned, because spoiler alert, it's all your job, and at any given moment, you're asked to do something brand new that you have to, research or look up, or, work with your other co-clerks to share briefs, things like that. But you're kind of running around the courtroom. I actually had the benefit of being in person and then going virtual. So I had both experiences, but you're doing everything from logistics to legal writing, reviewing, sometimes just being a buffer between attorneys and your judge, you know, having conversations with them so that your judge doesn't have to go out and have a conversation with them. Doing a lot of interacting with the court staff and chambers. So I work closely with our court clerk, our secretary, as well as even our sheriff's officers at different points. So, I mean, the coolest aspect is that you're going to learn the court system from the inside out, which I don't think there's any other position that would allow you to do so, especially as a new lawyer. You get a front row view. And of course, we know going to law school teaches you the academic law practice, but it doesn't teach you the professional aspect of practicing. So a clerkship, as Judge Maynard mentioned, you get to see great attorneys, you get to see problematic attorneys, you get to see everything from backstage, and your judge gets to help you groom your skills as you go on to practice in your career. So, but I mean, yeah, you do everything, but it's it's a great experience, and you come away with so much in terms of moving on in your professional career.
And a follow-up question for you, Ms. Ford. What's something that you wished you knew or surprised you about, the role of a law clerk that you did not know before?
I think I wasn't necessarily super clear on what the job entailed, and it kind of goes back to what I was mentioning. It's because it kind of entails everything. So I knew I would have to write. I knew I would have to research. I knew I would be, working and discussing cases with my judge. But I think interfacing with the public was a big piece that I didn't realize I was going to have such a big role in. I was initially supposed to be in a family clerkship that moved to a criminal clerkship. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be around criminals. Like, this is, was something that I didn't know I would be comfortable with or had a skill set for, because most of my work had been in family in law school. But you actually realize, hey, I did learn a thing or two in law school, and if they can do it, I can do it. I'm handling the work of an attorney now, or again, writing from that that impartial aspect. You learn so much, and I think I just was blown away by how ready I felt when I went into my first job after the clerkship. I knew e-courts, even simple things like that. I practiced with attorneys who maybe went straight into the prosecutor's office from private practice, but I knew how to get into promise gavel. So you're really getting an inside view on how the judiciary works from all levels, from pretrial services to the folks doing tech. It's a lot of useful skills that you take away that I don't see how you would learn otherwise. Right.
Okay. Now, Judge Sumners, is it common for judges to get switched from division to division?
Well, that's a good question, Kevin. In fact, I thought about that when Ms. Ford talked about how she came in. She was hired by Judge Fullerlove to be his law clerk, and at that time he was sitting in the family division, and then by the time she got there, he was in the criminal division. New Jersey currently it's a system whereby judges are regularly transferred from different divisions to different divisions. At the trial level, we have the family court, we have the criminal division, and we have the civil division. I know firsthand, I started off in civil, and then, one day, usually the assignments are changed around late spring, early summer. I was told I was going to criminal division. And, I didn't have any real experience in criminal, a little bit, but be that as it may, I was going to criminal division. And I was a little out of my comfort zone. But one of the more difficult things was to talk to my law clerk, my incoming law clerk, because at that time, she had expected to come to a civil division law clerk, right, as opposed to going to criminal division. And like Ms. Ford, she was thinking that she wanted to do this and she had to do something else. So it was interesting in that particular time, the judge that was coming from criminal division was taking my position in civil, and I was taking his position in criminal, and we both talked about it. And we gave, I guess, our law clerks the opportunity to consider whether they wanted to stay in the civil division or go with the judge who hired them. In my case, my law clerk, she stayed with me. She went with me to the criminal division. The judges really don't have a real say in it per se, but some counties in New Jersey, we refer to them as vicinages. There's changes every year. It's not like as a judge, you're going to be changing every year, but you can expect to be changed in some vicinage. Some vicinage, they don't change as frequently. You may be there, you may say you're very comfortable in the family division, and you may be in the family division for 10 years. And of course, you know, when you hire a law clerk the year before that they're pretty much going to be in that division, but in other vicinage, there's more changes. So that's something that law clerks can, I shouldn't say anticipate, but sometimes that's what happens. And let me just say, at the appellate division, that's not the case, because in the appellate division, you hear all types of cases. We hear all the appeals that come from the trial level, the criminal court, the civil courts, the family courts, and we also hear matters that come before us from the administrative agencies. All the state agencies will make decisions. Every state agency in New Jersey will make a decision that somebody will not like, and so they will appeal it to our court. We also handle matters that come out of the tax court, the state tax court in New Jersey. That's an area which I really don't prefer to handle those matters, but as Justice Pierre-Louis will find, we don't have a say in what matters we hear. We just have to dig in and learn that area law as best we can. And that's where the law clerks come in very handy. One thing I can say about a law clerk at the appellate division, you will come in having, maybe not be an expert, but you will have a familiarity with every aspect of the law in New Jersey that comes to our court. You will be dealing with termination of parental rights. Next thing you know, you're dealing with business transaction. Next thing you know, you're dealing with a medical malpractice. Next thing you know, you're dealing with an adoption issue. Next thing you know, you're dealing with a murder trial. So the variety is really amazing, and you have to dig in and learn those areas of the law in a very short time span. And just one thing I want to say before you go into the next panelist is that at the appellate division in the Supreme Court, we will hire a year in advance, meaning that this past summer is when, usually in July, and of course it's on our website, when the hiring process starts. And I'm gonna tell you, it's like a race. It's like soon as that date stops, you will get a flood of resumes. And if you send a resume to the appellate division judge or to a Supreme Court judge 3 weeks later, you're out of luck. Because once that interviewing starts, we have a submission date, and then you have an interview date. And once the judges and the justices can interview, they will interview, and usually within that first week, if they feel fortunate, they will have selected their person. Sometimes it goes into the second or third week. When I was in the trial division, I would wait until the fall, maybe even the winter time. There wasn't that much pressure, but at our level, the appellate division, the Supreme Court, the pressure is immediate. And if you're interested in applying those positions, you better know what the deadlines are, submit all your paperwork, because otherwise you're not going to be considered, or the judge will have already selected his team for that, not that coming September, but the following September.
Definitely stealing my thunder a little bit, Judge.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
I think that's a good point. I know you're going to talk about that some more, Kevin, but that is a good point, Judge Sumners. I think some law students don't realize, because there's a date that, as Kevin and Mr. Harmon will talk about, there's a date when the applications are open up, right? But that seems to be the date when we get that flood. So, students already have their applications in. So it's not necessarily, on that date you should start preparing. That's the date that you should be ready to have that application in and submitted and in our hands.
Sorry, Kevin, one thing leads to another.
I will emphasize those dates, when we get to that point, a little bit more than I usually do.
In fact, I don't even know the dates. I don't think about the dates. All I know is I get an email and the dates are here. I'm like, oh boy, here we go again.
I'll tell you, you'll know the dates by the end of this one, Judge. But Judge Maynor, what you talked about a little bit, but why should a law student pursue a judicial clerkship?
I think a judicial clerkship is beneficial. One, it allows anyone that is interviewing you for a prospective position is going to see that as a benefit to them, because they know that you have had to undergo a vigorous training period with a judge. So they know that you've been taught the basics and should understand the basics and a little more than the basics of legal research and writing, your ability to communicate effectively with attorneys and other legal professionals, that you know how to interact with courts, you know the inner workings of courts. And so they don't have to start from ground zero to teach you how to prepare in order to work with their organization, because you've learned much of what they would be spending the first year trying to teach you. You already have that underway. So your learning curve is dramatically different than someone without a clerkship. It also gives you a comfort level. I tend to select law clerks, and I'm not going to steal your thunder for one of your next questions, but I tend to select law clerks, keeping in mind what it is they need. I think when they walk in, each of my law clerks needs something different. In addition to me needing them, I think that my responsibility is to have them walk out. This is my old Girl Scout stuff, but to walk out better than he came in, right? And so my goal is to focus on what is it that I see that my law clerk is lacking this year. So sometimes my law clerk may come in shy. They may come in, a little nervous to interact with people, don't really feel comfortable talking. And so my goal is to kind of force them to get comfortable with speaking. And so I won't necessarily just read their write-up and make markups and take it and give it back to them. That law clerk will have to come in and have a conversation with me and discuss the analysis of the law that they've prepared for me. So I think it's beneficial because it allows a judge to be able to recognize what some of your challenges, some of your strengths, some of your weaknesses are, provide you with the assistance to better yourself that way, and to send you out ready to face the legal community as a professional.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Justice Pierre-Louis, I guess describe the mentoring relationship, between a law clerk and their judge.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest benefits of clerking is the mentoring relationship that inevitably forms between the judge and their law clerks. It's really a lifelong bond. And personally, after my clerkship with Justice Wallace, I stayed in very close contact with him and called him very often to get his advice and perspective on a variety of different things, including career matters. And I also had the opportunity to bond with his other law clerks because we would see each other at least twice a year, at a barbecue at Justice Wallace's house, at other events. And so, it's just been a great experience to have someone like Justice Wallace as a lifelong mentor. And that bond, of course, begins during the clerkship. Again, it's no matter what level you're clerking at, what court you're clerking with, the relationship with your judge is very close, because whether you might be the only law clerk or you might be one of two or one of three, that's a very small group of people. And for an entire year, those are your coworkers. And so you get an opportunity to get to know your fellow clerks well, but you really get an opportunity to get to know the judge that you're clerking for well, because you will spend a lot of time talking about cases, talking about your legal analysis, getting insight into how the judge's thought process and how he or she arrives to at their decision. So, and the judge will inevitably also, provide their law clerks with invaluable career advice based on their experiences. I was just on the phone with one of my law clerks from last year who is currently clerking at the federal court, but looking to join the U.S. Department of Justice. So, she's interviewing down in Washington, D.C. and looking to join the honors program. So we had a pretty long chat, which is probably the third or fourth chat we've had about becoming a federal prosecutor. But, I've talked to her at length about the kind of matters that I've worked on, the different divisions, connected her with other people at the Department of Justice or former federal prosecutors. So it really is a relationship that's beneficial for the law clerks to learn and understand the different aspects of the law, but also different aspects of the profession, and help guide them for their future as lawyers. So, it's certainly one of the benefits of being a clerk.
Okay, thank you. Now, Judge Sumners, we sent you a survey recently, so this information should be fresh. But what types of jobs? But what are some of the types of jobs, your past law clerks have secured?
Well, on 2 occasions, my law clerks have left my chambers and gone to someone else's chambers.
Okay.
One of them happened to go to Justice Pierre Lewis during her initial appointment to the Supreme Court. I had another law clerk who left me and she went to the U.S. District Court. So that's something that I never fathomed when I was clerking, that you would clerk 2 years in a row, but that's something that happens. The woman who I spoke about, the clerk who was with me when I transitioned from civil to criminal, she's now with the U.S. Immigration Office, dealing with issues, very important issues that they're having to deal with regarding asylum that are granted to individuals who want to come into this country. I have a Attorney General's office. I've had a number of attorneys that are in the Attorney General's office. I've had some that have gone to private practice, some of the larger firms here in New Jersey. Some of them, one of them I can think of is now in private practice after he did a short stint with a couple of firms. I also have one of my current law clerks is just accepted an offer today to go with the National ACLU. So it's a variety of opportunities that we can help them. It's not because, they clerk for me that they get all these great chances. It's the work that they do that put them in a position to get these opportunities.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And I know Judge Maynard, Justice Pierre Louis, you guys filled out that judge survey for me as well. Real quick while I have you here. No?
So many of my law clerks have gone either to the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office because I've been working with juveniles, and prior to that, criminal. Most of those law clerks tend to either have gone in private practice, public defender's, prosecutor's office. In my civil time on the bench, they have gone mostly to private law firms or in private practice. And one of them actually went to the SCC in DC. So that's my history.
Good.
And that, I've only been on for a year, so my three clerks, they're doing wonderfully. The clerk that clerked for Judge Sumner's, he's currently working in-house. Another one of my clerks is at a large Philadelphia-based firm, in a large firm based in Philadelphia. And my third clerk, as I mentioned, is now clerking for a federal district judge in Newark. So, the career prospects are really good when you've clerked, because employers value individuals who have clerked, who've spent a year learning from a judge and learning the inner workings of the court system, and that's a valuable experience, as I think Judge Maynard mentioned earlier. When I started at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I started with a group of about a dozen or so new AUSAs, and even though we all came from a wide range of law schools and a wide range of firms and other places, one of the characteristics that we pretty much all had in common was that almost all of us clerked. I think one or two of us had not clerked. Almost all of us clerked. So, I think it's something that you have on your resume. It follows you throughout your entire career, and employers really, really value that. Thank you.
Ms. Ford, what from a candidate's perspective, what can one expect during a clerkship interview? And also, why did you choose to go the judicial clerkship route?
Okay, I'll start with why did I choose to go the judicial route. A lot of it was what all of the judges and justice mentioned in terms of your career. It's like a critical first step, I feel, in the state of New Jersey. It does set you aside and set you ahead in many ways in terms of how you move forward. I think the fact that I was in human resources for many years, just understanding career pathing and how that goes, it's important to know that you're on a path, right? So you can read bios from partners of law firms, judges, U.S. attorneys, anybody. One of the common things is you'll see who they clerk for. They'll still be talking about it when they've been practicing for 20 plus years. It's really a foundation. So even though I was in a whole separate career and honestly, I had to take a major pay cut to do a clerkship. It was just that important for me to do so. And it definitely has set the tone for my career. It's prestigious. It's very prestigious. And I think it's an amazing first step. In terms of getting prepared for an interview, I would say start with preparing your package and preparing it well. Law clerks the current law clerks are a lot of times going to start or doing the initial process of reading through the resumes and cover letters. And we literally just would toss ones that had typos or were not well written. Your writing samples, all of those things take time. It's not like a rush, fill in the blank job application. It's a package that you're actually putting together. So take time putting the package together and understanding your package, because when people ask you questions about your resume, you kind of want some answers to be on the tip of your tongue. You don't want to be like, oh wait, what did I do at that place? So know your package and be able to create your narrative for your judge in terms of what you can bring and what you hope to learn. I think that's, I think Judge Maynard mentioned about what you need. You also want to have an idea of what you're trying to take away from it, whether you want to do more writing, whether you want to get more practice ready in terms of like ideas of oral arguments. You want to sit in on court a lot. You want to be able to discuss your expectations as well with your judge so that you guys can be on the same page. My interview was interesting because Judge Fullilove is friends with my stepfather, who's also on the bench in East Orange. And so because he kind of knew me, he's a jokester. So it was kind of, I was stressed out, but he was having a good time. So just be prepared to be calm and have a conversation. I think good interviews are conversational, and try not to be like a deer in headlights. That's the other thing. You finished law school, so you know enough. They're expecting you to know enough, and they expect to groom you and kind of be ready to have that conversation.
Thank you. Judge Maynard, what do you look for in a potential law clerk, and do you have any tips for the application or interview process?
Yeah, beyond the basic things, we obviously look for someone who is bright. We look for someone who can write. We look for someone who understands decorum and professionalism and courtesy. And, beyond those things, I also look at the person. Be yourself when you come into the interview. As indicated by Judge Pierre-Louis, you will be spending an enormous amount of time in chambers with just like 3 or 4 or 5 of you, the secretary, the judge, and if there's other law clerks. But that is for the most part, the people with whom you will spend most of your time. And so when I select a law clerk, I also have to, right, wrong, or indifferent, I have to be able to vibe with the person. I have to feel that I want to spend time talking to this person. And so it's important to me to learn who that person is in the interview. If the person is disingenuous, if the person is arrogant, if the person is not receptive to learning and receiving information, that's something that immediately makes me decide that I'm no longer interested in dealing with that person, because I can't spend my entire year being interrupted when I'm trying to give you a teaching moment, or you being a surface thinker and not willing to receive information and learn any further, or being quick to be defensive when someone says something to you. I need to know that this person has a personality. We work hard and play hard in my chambers, because I think that life, in addition to work, should be fun. You have to be here 8 hours at minimum a day, and you should feel comfortable in your space. There should obviously be boundaries, but you should feel comfortable in your space, and know, if the judge comes off the bench and the judge is having a bad moment and they're like, I need a Snickers, that someone can, joke with you and be like, hold on, judge, I got you, or if your law clerk looks, a little down today, you want to know what kind of music they listen to, because your secretary may be like, okay, she needs her favorite song. You know what I mean? Just different things to help you kind of get through the day. So I think it's important to, one, be yourself in your interview. As indicated by Ms. Ford, be prepared in your interview. Everyone's going to be nervous, but your nervousness shouldn't prevent you from being able to articulate that which you already know, because you presented it. If your package was thorough and you did your package, then you know your package and you know yourself and you know your experience, and you should be able to present yourself in the best light so that a judge can understand what sets you apart from all the other candidates that they may be interviewing. My tips, as indicated, is, everything that you have on your resume, be prepared to tell me, something. There's basic questions that usually are found on the internet that in some form or fashion are going to come up in your interview. Everyone knows that somebody's going to probably ask you your strengths and your weaknesses. Everyone's probably going to ask you what's the best, what was your favorite experience on that resume? They're going to ask you about challenges and accomplishments and different things like that. And you should be prepared to answer those things. So that's just my recommendation. Just be prepared and be yourself.
All right, thank you. Justice Pierre-Louis, is there any coursework and or experiences that judges look for in a law clerk applicant?
Well, I don't think there's any particular classes or experiences, but certainly every law school requires a certain amount of legal researching and writing or moot court. So I think it's pretty standard that most law students will have had those experiences by the end of their second year, by the time they start applying. So that's good. It's nice to see if they have had the opportunity to do an externship or an internship with a judge, so they've already have some familiarity with being in chambers, conducting, researching and writing for a judge. So that's helpful, but I wouldn't say that there's anything in particular that, I, at the beginning of the hiring season, tell myself, that, my clerks absolutely had to have done this or absolutely had to have taken, intellectual property law. I mean, so particularly since there's such a wide variety, as Judge Sumner's mentioned, at the appellate level, the clerks are working on every and any possible type of case that comes before the court. So, so definitely not looking for them to be experts in a particular area when they come here. It could be helpful if if a tax case comes up, if they're wondering if they were a tax expert, that's phenomenal. But there's nothing specific with regard to coursework, particularly since all law students do a lot of legal researching and writing courses, I think, in almost every law school. And I'll just echo some of what has already been said. It is really important to make sure, it's somebody that works well with others and can communicate, because again, the chambers are really small. I really look to see if the three clerks that I'm hiring are people that are able to work together, because there's a lot of work that comes through, and it is often the case that they have to help each other. They help each other by looking at each other's writing, reviewing their memos before they submit them to me or what have you, and just discussing cases together. So I always want to make sure that it's somebody who is able to communicate and express themselves and are not afraid to speak their mind, because again, a big part of the work that the law clerks do here are give their recommendations on a wide variety of matters before the court. So it has to be someone who is willing and able to do that. My current clerks, they all graduated from Rutgers in Newark, so they kind of knew each other. But about a week ago, I was talking to one clerk, and she said, "Oh yes, me and my brothers were talking about that." She's referring to them as her brothers, which I think is nice, because it shows that they're working really well together. They're always up there talking and discussing cases and having very lively discussion, which is great, because that just means their work product is going to be really good. And with regard to the applications, please no typos. Just make sure as Ms. Ford said, if there's a typo, it might just get put aside from the beginning. And I say might, but it will. When there is a very condensed timeline, as we have already discussed, for hiring, and 200 applications come in, most of which are very intelligent, really smart candidates who I'm sure most would make very phenomenal law clerks. There's not, that there has to be some, there are going to be some things that separate the folks that I bring in for an interview and the folks that I don't. And if there's typos, if my name is spelled wrong, if the court that I sit on is wrong, which I've seen, which I've already seen many times, then that's getting put aside. When you're submitting an application, it's your resume, which should be a page long, a writing sample that's maybe 15, 20 pages. that's 20 pages that, you should really work to make sure it's impeccable. Go to career services, ask a friend to look at it, because oftentimes we review our resumes or writing so much that what it says. You're not going to identify the typos or any mistakes, or realize that it doesn't, that the information doesn't flow. So you really have to ask for assistance, ask somebody to look at it, because that's your first impression. And for me, if the first impression is that in 20 pages of an application, there's typos or mistakes, that to me is an indicator that when you are my law clerk and you're writing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of work product throughout the year, that it might not be as clean as I expect it to be. So make sure, the 15 pages of your application that you submit are impeccable and really present yourself in a really good light, because that's your first impression. And, it might not even get your foot in the door if it's not written well.
Right, good. All right, thank you. Before my next question, I just wanted to let everybody know we have a few minutes left with our panelists today. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A feature. And also in terms of the application, one thing I've heard from a lot of judges, your cover letters, don't put "Dear Judge." Put the judge's name, just so you know. All right. Judge Sumners, we talked about this briefly before, but how influential do you think GPAs are in the application process?
I think it's important. I've been in situations where I've hired someone who GPA was really not up to what one would expect. But if that is the case, then you need to, and if you have an opportunity to interview, you need to explain why your GPA may not be up to par. I know if I look at my GPA, I say, well, I don't know whether this guy can do the work. But there are a lot of reasons why a person may not have a high GPA, particularly those individuals in this oncoming class who had to deal with the pandemic and having to go to law school remotely. That was a huge hurdle, and some people handle it better than others. So if you do have a low GPA, but I would say, generally you have to have at least a B average for me to even look at the resume, and preferably a high A average. But I'm not one of those judges, and there are some, with all due respect, that say if it doesn't meet a certain threshold, then they won't even look at it. With me, I try to look at the person as a whole, and if they have a GPA that may be higher than the next person, I will look at their other things. And of course, if there's something that, if I interview them, if they would discuss that up front or present that to me as their GPA, and then again, I look at how the GPA has progressed from their first year to the most recent year, to see how they've been able to handle the law school transition. Some individuals handle it better than others, but that doesn't always mean that because you have a high GPA, then you're actually the person I'm looking for, because for all the reasons that was explained by other panelists, there's so many other factors that go into it, but you do have to have a GPA that would represent that you can handle a complex caseload.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So we're coming up on 4 o'clock. Ms. Ford, any final thoughts from you?
I think so much has been discussed. I'm a big proponent of the clerkship process, and I just, definitely go for it. To all of those who are listening, it's something that you'll really appreciate as your career progresses, for sure.
All right. Justice Pierre-Louis? Some final thoughts?
Sorry. Oh, yes. Sorry. It took me a second for some reason to click off the mute. I agree with Ms. Ford. It's an invaluable experience. It's something that will stay with you for your entire career. And it really is a great way to get started in the profession, learning the inner workings of the court, learning from a judge for an entire year, and just getting to know other attorneys in the profession in the process. So, it's something that, you should all consider, because it will be a benefit to you in so many ways.
All right, thank you. Judge Maynard?
completely agree. I think that New Jersey judiciary is probably one of the best judiciaries in the country. I think that we are leading the nation in terms of diversity, both in race, ethnicity, background, and just life experience, as well as professional experience. I think that because our courts are set up in a way that it allows you to have connections between all of the divisions, opportunities to hear different types of cases, meet different types of people, learn about different types of careers. It allows you to make an informed decision about the types of law that you're interested in, not interested in, or didn't even think that you could be interested in. So I think that it's a fantastic opportunity to learn, to be exposed to things and people, as Judge Pierre-Louis indicated, to have a lifelong mentor and relationships with other people. And I don't think you'll get that anywhere else. So good luck to you, and I hope that you all will apply.
Thank you. Judge Sumners.
I repeat or ditto everything that was just said. I would also like to add that if you're interested in the appellate level or Supreme Court level, then it is almost, I would say 100% necessary, but in most cases it's very extremely necessary that you have some journal or law review background. It's not as important on the trial level, but when you get to our level, this is like a law review on steroids. You have to really, really hump. And if you don't have that experience in working on a journal or law or not law review, but a law review or a journal, some sort of journal, you are really it's going to be very hard for even most judges at our level to even consider your application. So that's something that you really got to focus on. If those of you out there are in your first year, that's something that you need to seriously consider if you want to clerk at this level.
All right, thank you, Judge Sumners. So let me share my screen one more time. Make sure I got the right thing here. Okay. So let's see. So I would like to thank our panel and everyone in the audience for participating today. We will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone with additional information and responses to any remaining questions. So for next steps, for any 3L students out there still looking for a judicial clerkship, there are a number of vacancies available for the 2022-2023 court term that starts in August 22. Like Judge Sumners was saying before, you know, when things open up in June, a bunch of our judges, they do hire very, very quickly. But, you know, 6 months, 8 months after the fact, we still do have judges who start their interview process a little bit later. So like I said, for the 2022-23 court term, starts in August 22. You can literally go into our law clerk portal and apply today. For any 2L students, there are some key dates that I do want you to be aware of. The recruitment cycle for the August 2023-2024 clerkship term tentatively starts May 30th, 2022, when the notice of vacancy or job description is posted, which goes out more than a year in advance. Applicants, they'll be able to start applying to these positions on June 13th. You can go into our law clerk portal now and start developing your document library, your profile and everything like that to prepare for June 13th. So justices and judges, they can begin scheduling interviews and making offers of employment on June 20th. So after June 13th, you have about a week to get everything in until all the appellate and Supreme Court justices start making offers on June 20th. To apply to a judicial clerkship position, please visit our website at www.njcourts.gov and go to the law clerk recruitment page. If you have any other questions, you can send them to lawclerkfaq@njcourts.gov or to me directly at kevin.harmon@njcourts.gov. Once again, thank you all of our panelists, Ms. Ford, Justice Pierre-Louis, Judge Sumners, Judge Maynor, and everybody in the audience from the NBLSA. Thank you for participating in today's seminar. We hope you do consider a judicial clerkship with New Jersey courts. Definitely we'll have more information coming out, throughout the year. Be on the lookout for that additional content. Be safe, And have a great day. How the work of the courts continues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good one. Thanks for participating.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thanks for the invitation.
Bye.
Hey.